Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to the Kendo Show. Okay, so here we are for a special episode of the Kendo Show today. Normally I would be filming like feedback videos and stuff like that today, but I'm starting feedback videos again next week. So if you send me a video for feedback, I'm sorry it's been a little while since I've got back to you, I'll be starting them again next week, okay? Today I wanted to make a little video talking about my experience as a Shinpan at the European Kendo Championships, my first ever sort of outing, as it were, on the international stage as a referee. So I'm going to talk about that sort of informally. I don't have a script or anything. I haven't planned this video particularly that much. I just wanted to kind of, just sort of talk about what it was like and how the whole experience was, and what what sort of things I learned and took away from it all, really. Before we jump into that though, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, help people start Kendo by doing all the YouTube stuff. Leave a comment down there, tell us what a brilliant Kendo video this is, and you might just help another 57 people start Kendo who are just on the brink of starting Kendo and they just need that extra nudge over the edge. And that could be a link to this channel suggested by YouTube, thanks to the comment that you've left down there. So go and do it. And don't forget to support the channel by shopping at KendoStar.com. KendoStar.com is the best Kendo equipment website in the known universe, in the entire galaxy, this galaxy, the next galaxy, every galaxy, the galaxy that's a long time ago, far, far away, is how it goes. The best Kendo shop going, okay? Now, of course, I would say that. Of course, I would say that because I own the place, but everybody agrees with me, so get to KendoStar.com and keep these videos coming. Keep yourself supplied with the best quality Kendo equipment going. Best service with it as well. Right, so refereeing. So how did it all work? So basically, right, starts in February this year. There's a FIK, International Kendo Federation European Zone Shinpan seminar that sort of serves as I think it has like a kind of preliminary aspect of selecting the referees for the World Championships, but it also serves as the sort of selection event for referees for the European Kendo Championships. That was held in Brussels. I went over to that. It's the first time for me going over there. It was great. It was a fantastic event. You get 3 Hachidan senseis come, some members of the Japanese national team, some Korean players as well. Super awesome. There's like keiko happens on the Friday, which is great. Got to practice with some awesome senseis. Senseis from America and from other zones as well. From like there was a Korean senseis there too. So super awesome. And then there's cake on the Friday, and then the seminar was Saturday, Sunday, which is refereeing seminar, okay? And the referee seminar is essentially, there's several matches happen. There's, as I say, there's members of the Japanese team there. There was Korean players, there's members of various European teams there as well, who were selected to go and do that. Super interesting. It's a really interesting seminar. It's not like a full-on teaching seminar. There's a bit of instruction, but it's mainly you referee matches and then you're assessed on your ability as a referee, and then you are selected or not to be a referee at the championships. And I was very, very fortunate as to be selected, which I was very pleased about. I've always been reasonably, well, not always, but like I'm reasonably confident in my Shinpan ability. I did a lot of Shinpan in Japan when I lived in Japan at various levels. I think I'm pretty decent at it, to be honest. At least that's the way. I've never had too many sort of super complaints about it. It's not I'm perfect. It's not I don't make mistakes or anything like that. But I generally have a good grasp of the rules and a good sort of idea of what is the new called adulthood. So yeah, I was really, really pleased to be selected for that. So that was cool. And then I realized, okay, now I have to prepare. So how did I prepare? How did I prepare for refereeing an event of that caliber? Now, the thing is I've been a competitor in the European Championships and the World Championships many times, and it's very sort of clear to me, having that experience, how important the roles of the referees are in several ways. There's no tournament without them, of course, but also, the decisions that they make really do influence the players, not just their matches, but their actual career in lots of ways. So it's very, very important. It has a very large responsibility, a heavy burden of responsibility, being a referee at that level. So it's something that straight away I thought, I definitely wanted to give my very best, take as seriously as I possibly could. So there was lots of things I did to prepare. One thing I did was I participated in Shanghai. I joined the French Open Championships as a player. I think it's very, very important for the active Shinpan to also be active in Kendo and, if possible, in Shiai too. Most Japanese referees still do Shiai of some sort, even if it's just once or twice a year. So, I thought it was really important to do that, see the match again. I haven't done Shiai for a long time, so it was really important to go and see things from the players' side. Had a great time doing the Shiai too. Did manage to win it, unfortunately. I think I got to best 8 or something like that, but I can't remember what the end result was, but some Japanese kid knocked me out. They let some Japanese university kids from like Keio University playing it. So yeah, that's a bit of a tall order for me, to be fair, at my age. But anyway, had good fun in it. So did that. I spent a long time as well researching, reading all the documents that we could get our hands on regarding the rules, the new rules, and watching the videos. I think the important thing was to watch videos from the Japanese Shiai, the latest ones, see how the best Shinpan in the world are applying the rules to the matches. So that was something else that was a big part of my preparation. Then obviously at the beginning of April, the All Japan Kendo Federation released some fantastic documents, or improved some of the documents they already had as well, giving more information about the preliminary provisional rules, and how they should be interpreted and applied, and that helped a lot. And even down to the journey there, like on the aeroplane, the flight from Manchester to Paris is like about an hour, which is about how long you need to sit and read through the rule book, the Kendo rule book. You can read through it in about an hour. It's not a really long read, but sitting down reading through that again was really, really useful. Obviously, right before the tournament. Other things I did: went and bought a new suit, a new sort of jacket. Wasn't super happy with the one that I already had. Lost a bit of weight since I bought that one. Sorted a better fitting one. Got one that was a bit more tailored. Made sure I had everything that was required, especially correctly. Some people missed some details. Nobody at the Europeans did, don't get me wrong. I mean, but people can easily miss some details of the Shinpan fuku, the Shinpan uniform. The colour of the socks, for example, should be navy, shouldn't be black or grey, should be navy. So yeah, that was it. That was my preparation for it, I guess. How did I feel about it when I got there? I was kind of very nervous, of course, but in a different way. It was very different. It was a very different type of nerves to, let's say, the like being there as a competitor. It's a very different thing. It was interesting. I wasn't that nervous about doing the Shinpan itself. Like I say, I'm reasonably confident in my ability as a Shinpan. I'm comfortable with how to do Shinpan. I'm comfortable most of the time with the decisions that I generally make. Overall, I'm quite, I'm quite fine with that. So I wasn't thinking like, oh, I hope I don't do rubbish. I hope I don't, be a rubbish Shinpan so much. Because I wasn't necessarily all that concerned about that. As I say, it's something I'm reasonably confident about. But what I think I was most worried about is that I was going to do something stupid or something, like fall over on the Shiaijo, or like I have a tendency sometimes, like when I've been when I'm like under pressure or nervous like that, I have made like dumb mistakes. Like, so we were doing it wasn't even like nervous thing, but like when I'm sort of over concentrating, I've like after the bomb, forgetting to put the flag down or something like that. That sort of stupid mistake that's easy to make. I was a bit nervous of that. Luckily managed not to do anything like that. Enjoyed the tournament. Nearly slipped once, but that was about it. But yeah, other than that, it was really cool. Arriving at the tournament as like a referee as opposed to a competitor. Up to now, it's always been as a competitor. Once in Serbia in 2019, I was like a assistant coach to the team, so I was part of the coaching team rather than actually the players team. So that was a different experience once again. But yeah, it was kind of it was much less kind of intense. Like obviously when you go there as a player, especially if like you kind of like my early days as a player and my later days as a player, very different experience as well. Like for early days of the player, I was arriving there, I was super nervous because I was like still overwhelmed by the sort of grandeur of the event. Whereas in my later days of the player, I was there and I was very nervous or felt under pressure because I wanted to make sure that I sort of performed to my potential, or I was there seriously to achieve a good result, which in itself comes with a separate form of pressure. So then this time coming there as a referee, so yeah, as I said already, I still had some feelings of pressure or nerves, but not quite the same in the same way, all right? Because at the end of the day, when you're refereeing, it's not the same as a competitor, right? It's like if you mess up, like you mess up. It's not like you get beat by someone who's better than you or something like that either. So it's quite a big difference there. So get there. Really kind of interesting. First time we all meet together is on the Friday morning before the matches. There's a referee meeting in the morning the day before. I'm given a sort of breakdown of the referee team that I'm part of. So there's 4 Shiaijo, and then the referee teams are divided amongst each Shiaijo. So by this point, I know which Shiaijo I'm on and which Shiaijo B. And I know who else is on there with me. So that was great. That was really awesome because, looking through the names, we've got obviously one of the Japanese senseis are Shinpan Shunin. So that's kind of a bit of pressure. And then lots of, I basically knew pretty much everybody else in my group, either from my days as a competitor, we were sort of competing at similar times, or various senseis from around Europe and stuff like that as well were part of it. And they were all people who I really sort of look up to and respect. So it was really, really fantastic. I mean, the whole group of referees are people that I look up to and respect, in fairness. But I just felt particularly lucky that, that some of the majority of the group that I was made up on the Shiaijo I was on were people that I was already familiar with. So that was really cool. And then we begin refereeing the matches. So we'll go out on the first it's the junior teams. I think I think we were my group was the second set of referees to go on. Could be second or third set of referees to go on. And that was cool. An interesting thing that came up actually at the referee meeting in the morning. Before I get into the matches too much, one thing that was really interesting was I'd never heard of this before, but at the European Championships, there's a special rule in place where the Fukushin, so the not sub referees, but there's the 3 referees. You've got the Shushin and the 2 Fukushin. In a normal Shiai, under the normal rules, only the Shushin is able to sort of stop the match and call for Gorgi in most circumstances. Gorgi being a meeting to discuss if somebody needs to get a hand socker or someone needs to be penalised or something needs to happen. Normally it's the Shushin's job to administrate that. But in the European Championships, and it's just the European Championships, all of the referees are able to do that. The Fukushin are allowed to do that as well. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of that rule. So it was really, really interesting. And it was explained to us that, you know, the reason for that is because at an event like that, you've got people who are very, very experienced, you know, have like the higher grades like 7th Dan, and maybe refereed many of these tournaments before. And then you have people who are new, like me, who, you know, I'm still 6th Dan at the moment. I'd never done this before. It was my first time doing it. So I'm sort of a newbie, as it were, in refereeing at an event like that. Okay. And that's, so the reason for that is because you know, it's like that. Unlike Japan, for example, all Japan Championships, all of the referees are all same level. Whereas in the European Championships, you could have that sort of difference in grade or experience. So it means that sometimes you could have a lower experienced person like myself as the Shushin, whereas someone with much more experience as a Fukushin, and I might miss something that needs to be addressed. And the reason that became more apparent and more sort of more obvious as to why that's necessary is, and I'll get into this a bit more, but you know, as I said, up to now, I've always been reasonably confident and happy with my ability as a Shinpan. But especially because I've done quite a lot of refereeing in Japan. But when you go to European Championships, you're refereeing there, it's kind of, there's a lot of things that are very, very different, all right? There's a lot of things that are very different and new and kind of almost unique to the European Championships. So, I say unique, but I mean, I expect they happen in the World Championships too, but that sort of international level Shiai, I think there's a lot of things that happen in the Shiai that are somewhat unique to that type of Shiai. So, in that regard, it makes a lot of sense as to why they would change the rules that way, so that the Fukushin, who could be more experienced, can also raise things that a less experienced Shushin, someone like myself, might potentially miss. So I thought that was really interesting and really positive sort of addition. The delegation from Japan too, they obviously gave us some advice about how we should look out for things in the new rules, making sure people are separating properly, things like that. And on our Shiai Joe, before we started, Sato Sensei, the sensei from Japan, gathered our team around and said, look, you know, we all know about the new rules and that we have to watch out for these hansoku, but don't forget that given hansoku is the secondary job of the Shinpan, the first job, the primary job is to look for the Yuko Datotsu, so don't forget to watch for the Yuko Datotsu. So that was cool. So then we start actually refereeing. That was kind of the first match was like probably the most nerve-wracking. You know, you stood out there, all the eyes they're not on you, but it feels like they're on you. You know, their eyes are on the players, right? But it feels like people watching you, but they're not. You know, but there's a live stream going, there's loads of people watching. So yeah, it's it's kind of an interesting experience in that regard. But once you've done a couple of matches, you sort of forget about that and it just goes into normal sort of refereeing mode, really, which is fine. So yeah, refereeing it itself was pretty fine. Obviously there was quite a big thing about applying the rules. The sort of provisional rules of separation from Subazeri was probably the biggest cause for hand soccer, from at least on our court. Players have to separate once they get to Subazeri. Once they get to Subazeri like this, they have to separate all the way this way, and both players have to do. You can't just one player separate like this. If you do that, this one can get the hand soccer, okay? Or sometimes this would sort of, one would come back this way and this one wouldn't go back, so they wouldn't go to Torma, so this one gets the hand soccer. So you have to watch for all these things very carefully. Also in the Subazeri as well, they only have 3 seconds before they're allowed to make a strike. So that's you know, quite hard to judge. And then also there's, like, as I said a minute ago, you know, there's certain things that are very different to refereeing at other levels. A lot of things. One thing that was brought to my attention, for example, I probably missed a couple of times where I should have given hand soccer because something happened that I just didn't expect to happen, because I'd never seen it happen in the Shiai before. From the point of view of a referee, this doesn't happen in Japan. So some sort of physical stuff, people throwing themselves on the floor instead of going, like, to avoid going out of the Shiaijo, or ducking down sort of this way, creating a very dangerous situation, again, to avoid leaving the Shiaijo. Also, maybe, especially, there's some very, very tall players in Europe, you know, maybe after hitting, they end up with their arms behind the head of the opponent. And obviously, because they're not, some of them not as experienced, or some of them are just very, very emotionally invested, instead of returning to Subazeri, I probably maybe pull. You know, obviously when things start to get heated between two players as well, get into that, they end up like this, and they pull. And if you pull, have your arms over the head of them and you pull them down this way, it's clear hand soccer. But you don't. You very, very rarely see that happen in Japan, actually. Maybe it happens at police championships, don't know, never refereed at that level, but, you know, refereeing at a sort of normal level in Japan didn't really see stuff like that. So I think I was a little less used to looking out for that sort of thing. So there's probably a few things like that I might have missed. And there was a couple of times, I know there was one that I sort of missed of that, but luckily the Fukushima I was working with, as a more experienced person with me, was able to help me recognise that, so that we could award the hand soccer when it was appropriate. So that was kind of interesting. You know, the one thing I would say as well is that's really kind of tricky about refereeing at that sort of level, especially with everything being broadcast now, and with the rules being as they are, which are kind of, you know, there's a lot of the rules that are based on the interpretation of the Shinpan. It can be difficult because there are a lot of hand soccers going here, there and everywhere, and there wasn't that many, but it was clear to see that some people are still, you know, there's a difference still in the understanding of what's okay and what's not. And at the end of the day, a lot of these things, like how much blocking is okay, or how long is too long at Subazeri, these are things that are down to the interpretation of the Shinpan. They're not set in stone, they're up to the interpretation of the Shinpan. So, you know, sometimes it's difficult to make decisions and calls like that. And you know, and sometimes you get people that'll come and try and challenge you afterwards, which is kind of fine. You know, when I was like a kind of young sort of third dan, fourth dan level competitor, I thought I knew everything. You know, I used to be a bit like that too. I used to blame a lot of things on the Shinpan, but that isn't, you know, it's best not to be like that. The thing is, right, here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. It was quite an eye-opener to me as well, right? Because I'd only seen it from the competitor's point of view as well. You just think, oh, well, that referee just made that decision and they were wrong. But what you don't necessarily understand is from the referee's point of view, and this is one of the reasons I'm super grateful for having the opportunity to do this, is there's a whole different context from the referee's point of view. Referees aren't just making decisions, snap decisions, sort of. I mean, they are making snap decisions, especially on Ippon, but, you know, when it comes to things like handsucker, for example, they're not just making uneducated, random decisions, all right? They're making decisions based off not just their experience, which they have a lot of, because you have to be selected to be there, right? But they're making it based on the context as well of things that have happened at the tournament, and this includes the fact that you've received instruction as a referee that day from the Shinpan Cho and the Shinpan Shunin, who have perhaps said to you, look, this is happening too much, you need to be stricter on it. Or, you know, oh, look, you're a little bit too strict on that, maybe you should just chill out a bit, sort of thing, you know. For example, we were told one day that, you know, some of us were a little bit too fast to say yame when a player fell over. We should give the opponent a chance to strike him first, for example. Or some would say, you know, they'd say, look, you know, when you know you're missing a bit too many of these separation handsucker, things like that. So there's a context to it, right? And then when you come off the shiaijo as a referee, then you then get direct feedback from, like, maybe the Hanshi Hachidan sensei, who says, look, that was okay, but you missed this, or you missed that, or you should do it this way this time, right? They're not just lone operatives out there on their own making these random decisions. And especially when, like, something happens as a result of Gorgi, what you've got is you've got three Shinpan then that have come together, who are very experienced, and they've come together and they've decided amongst them, not necessarily unanimously, but they've come to a consensus that this is what needs to happen. So then what you need to ask yourself, and this is sort of going back to my own experience when I was sort of like, I don't know, sort of in my early 20s, third dan, fourth dan, something like that. Did I really know better than them? Really? No, I didn't. Okay? No, I didn't, is the fact, even if I thought I did. All right? So, you know, the one thing I'd sort of say to anybody who's a player or wants to be a player at that sort of level, if something happens in the Shiai that doesn't go your way, like a decision from the referee doesn't go your way, or doesn't turn out exactly how you expected it to, the chances are that you're understanding something wrong rather than the Shinpan being wrong. Now, it's not to say that the Shinpan don't make mistakes. I make mistakes. I've made a couple of mistakes this weekend, probably not this weekend at the European Championships, but I can't think of any, like, super glaring, obvious mistakes that I made that were really, really bad, like calling the wrong Ippon or something like that. I think my personal thinking back, I was probably a little bit light on the flags a couple of times, but as I say, my other Shinpan group were able to help me understand that was probably a little bit too easy to give the Ippon, and they gave the feedback by refusing it. So, you know, that's all good. Nothing like that resulted in Ippon. So what I'm saying is yeah, referees sometimes make mistakes, but if you blame your the failures of your Kendo career on mistakes of the referees, you're not really going to go anywhere. All right. Anyway, this is supposed to be about my experience there rather than that. Anyway, so that was that. As I say, mistakes-wise, did I make any mistakes? Well, like I say, I was a little bit light on the flags a couple of times. It's a bit hard, especially in the earlier matches, where you're kind of trying to figure out the kind of, you know, what's an appropriate sort of standard to be at. Was that good enough? Let's have a look. No, those two didn't think so. Okay, cool. Okay, what about that one? Okay, oh no, they still didn't think so. Okay, right, okay. Well, that was definitely Bon. Okay, bam, okay, yeah, they agreed as well. You know, these sort of things, I think that's quite kind of normal as you're going through. I don't remember making any sort of glaring or obvious huge mistakes or errors in decisions that I made. I missed a couple of hand soccer for things that I just didn't expect to happen. I wasn't watching for properly. you know, as I say, the one I was warned about was players diving on the floor or ducking down near the floor when they're about to go out of the zone, the Shiaijo, in order to avoid going out. Never seen someone do that before. So I was, you know, I was concentrating on other things, concentrating to see if they were going to go out, concentrating to see if there was going to be an Ippon. Didn't occur to me at the time that they were doing, you know, they were going to do that, and kind of didn't really process it fast enough at the time. So that should have been a couple of hand suckers that I missed there. But otherwise, yeah, I don't think there's anything too bad. And that's, as I said, the sort of differences I had with Japan, doing Shinpan in Japan, was that sort of things that you just don't see that much. There's, you know, I think a couple of general comments I've heard about the EKC since as well. Heard some people say that like I say, around the people not quite sure how to interpret the judging around the, you know, separating from Sbizzerii. It's quite simple, but it doesn't seem to have fully been communicated, okay? So I'll just go over it again very quickly once more. Once you're in Sbizzerii, you've got about 3 seconds. That 3 seconds is up to the Shinpan, not you, okay? It's not up to you, it's up to the Shinpan, right? So the Shinpan are going to give you what they think is about 3 seconds to do Hikiwata, or if you don't, either side doesn't do the Hikiwata, then there has to be a mutual separation. If within that 3 seconds, a mutual separation begins, then it has to complete, okay? That isn't to say if one side starts to retreat within that 3 seconds, and the other side doesn't accept that as a mutual retreat, they can then make a strike. That's okay, okay? What you can't do is both start to retreat and then one starts to make a strike, okay? If that happens, this can't be considered Ippon. If you fake it as well, if you fake it and be like, okay, yeah, and nod and like, okay, let's separate, yeah, bam, like this, and then trick them, that can even be the hand sucker, okay? Or if you separate, then you have to both separate, both, not just one. So if this one just stays still like that and that separates, this one gets a hand sucker. You have to both do it. Both do it, okay? Then blocking, too much like this, not engaging in shobu. Doesn't mean you're not allowed to block. Doesn't mean that. It means you can't just avoid the match all the time by covering everything, all right? It's a bit unfair to do that. So, doesn't mean you can't block this way, but doing this and then running in all the time, you're going to get a hand sucker for that, okay? That's it. It's pretty simple for the most part, okay? But yeah, another thing I heard someone say that they felt that the Hikiwaza was quite easy to be awarded, and to some extent, yeah. But this is something as well that was like at the referee seminar, for example, the Zenkennen, the All Japan Kendo Federation, sort of said that to the referee candidates, that particularly like in a situation where one player attacks, they come together and then there's an instant Hikiwaza. If that makes, you know, if that's a decent enough strike, then we should be willing to award it and not miss it, so that we can not reward, but so that players do continue to look for strikes in those opportunities. Because if we just always ignore them, then players will stop using them, and they don't want that. And also, I think one thing that a lot of people missed out on is because this, you know, there's still a variance in how these separation rules and guidelines are sort of interpreted. It seems like there's some teams out there that think you just can't do Hikiwaza. So if one side just completely like is off guard and isn't really concentrating, and then one side does the Hikiwaza, then yeah, that's generally going to go up. That's generally going to go up, even if the strike isn't absolutely sort of completely perfect. This is a great opportunity. So I think that's what I'd say in regards to that. Would I do it again? Absolutely. I had a fantastic time. It was absolutely brilliant. I learned so much. I gained so much from it. And it really, it's been one of the best experiences in my Kendo journey so far. So I absolutely would do it again. Next year's the World Championships. I don't technically qualify for that. Well, I do sort of qualify, but I think it's unlikely. Having only done one EKC, and they sort of prefer to have 7th dans, and I'm still a sort of couple of years away from challenging 7th dan even, so I don't know. But after that, you know, in the future, I think it's definitely something that I'd look into again. I'd definitely want to try out do it again, because I thought it was great, and I thought I was a positive addition to the refereeing team as well. So yeah, had a great time doing it. All in all, it was brilliant, and that's it. That's my sort of recap of the event and what it was like to be a Shinpan at the European Championships. I thought it was great, and yeah, I think it really does give you a new insight into Kendo and what it's like from that side. As I said, when I was young and kind of arrogant and thought I knew everything as a competitor, it was really easy to sort of throw shade on the Shinpan. Oh, that Shinpan doesn't know what they're doing, they don't know this, or, you know, they missed this brilliant kote or whatever. I didn't really know what I was talking about. I just thought I did because I had 3rd dan or 4th dan or something. So yeah, I absolutely didn't understand the context, the overall context of being a Shinpan at an event like that. And it's not just one person who's just acting not randomly but completely independently. There's a whole context to everything, and it's very, very, very well organised as well. The event as a whole, absolutely brilliantly organised, and the whole running of the Shinpan format and all that sort of thing, that was excellently organised as well. I've got nothing but extreme gratitude to the European Kendo Federation for not only giving me the opportunity to participate in that role, but also for organising and carrying out such a fantastic event. Thank you so much. And that's it. So I hope it was interesting. Like, share, subscribe, shop at KendoStar, and see you again soon. Bye bye.